We're live. Thank you for coming to Spirit Speaks, our community spiritual conversation. And we're here on Tuesday instead of Sunday this week. My sister's baby shower was on Sunday, so we shifted some things around. And I think we'll be meeting on Tuesdays going forward. I think that seems to be a little bit of a better fit. So, yeah, thanks for coming. There's something I want to talk about in oh yeah, we can start with a prayer. Dear God, thank you for the gifts we have been given. Thank you for the gift of all-powerful creative mind. Thank you for your gift of love that we may extend and share with others. Thank you. Thank you for your teachings, bringing us closer to you, closer to knowing ourselves as we truly are, as opposed to the layers of perception and projection that we seem to choose to interpret uh, instead of seeing who we truly are. We are sustained by your love. Amen. Right. I something I want to talk about is the experience of pain and sickness. This is something I've gotten pretty good at it in my life when I seem to have a symptom of being sick or ill, not feeling well. I've gotten pretty good at saying, this proves nothing, right? Because the ego wants to say, look, here's proof that you're vulnerable. Here's proof of your separation from God. Here's proof that you are a body because you seem to be experiencing this. And the to help kind of reprogram that thought pattern, that thought habit, um, instead of allowing the symptom to be a clue or evidence of um, separation. Assuming, okay, bring it closer this way. Yeah. Instead of that being a clue or evidence of separation, I say, oh, that's okay. I'm not separate. This does not prove that I'm separate at all, right? Um, or I just remind myself I'm one with God. I am invulnerable. Sure, anything could seem to be happening, right? Um, I return power to my mind. I say, oh, I'm making this, right? I'm choosing this in this moment. It's not like, oh, I chose it in the moment when I decided to get sick. It's like, no, you're choosing it in the moment. You're choosing those symptoms in the moment. Um, yeah, choosing to be vulnerable. And I say moment that we get sick because it's like we're gonna seem to assign our power to something outside of ourselves. We're gonna say, oh, I got sick because of germs. I got sick because Susie's kid had a runny nose and she brought them to daycare, and then my kid was in daycare and got me sick. Or whatever, right? So we're gonna try and, or that food got me sick, right? That was something that came up recently. I was having awful gas, but I didn't know it was gas. It was just like insane stomach cramps, like really insane stomach cramps, super uncomfortable, very painful, and I had no idea what was going on. And I was just like kind of curled up like an armadillo on the floor. Just total like knees to forehead, fetal position. Kind of just waiting for it to pass. Like I had no idea what was going on. Wasn't anything that I seemed to be able to do about it. and I couldn't tell what organ seemed to be irritated, right? So I'm laying there in pain in this fetal position, and the ego mind is trying to find something to blame, trying to make me guilty for doing something wrong, for eating a bad food, or maybe an activity I did messed with some of my organs or something, trying to make me guilty, trying to figure out what I did wrong that would justify this kind of pain and this kind of sickness. I mean, that's really what it is, right? So, or suffering or separation, proof that I'm separate, right? It's trying to make me guilty of this. And I'm in pain and I notice a thought come up like, oh, maybe it's the food you ate. Maybe it's this food in particular. And I just said, no, food doesn't do anything to me. Food doesn't food doesn't help me. Food doesn't make me sick. Like I'm not vulnerable to food, right? Like this is a something you hear a lot is like food makes you fat. If you eat too much food, you're going to be fat. If you don't eat enough food, you're going to be malnourished. Anything like that. Food doesn't do anything to you, right? You see people all the time who eat so much fucking food and they're not fat, right? So it's like, okay, obviously it's not the food that does that. Um, or vice versa. People who like hardly eat anything at all and they still seem to be overweight, right? And you could come in here and say like, "Oh, it's genetics. It's the body that makes you fat," or like your genetics are going to make you one way or another. It's like, nope, not at all, right? It really comes down to what are you making in your mind? You can give power to your genetics over everything else. You can give power to food over everything else, right? Now you're now the effects of food are more intense, but then also uh you can be vulnerable to food, right? So they could help, like food could be, oh, we really need food. Food is so important. If I eat the right foods, then X, Y, and Z, I'll be safe, happy, healthy, blah, 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 right? But then if you don't eat the right foods, you're in danger, you're unsafe, you're unhealthy, etc. Right? Yeah. So if you make one, you make the opposite. Um, Same with genetics, right? You could use the same excuse where it's like, oh, my genetics make me the way I am. And those genetics could make you safe, happy, and healthy. But then if you pay attention to other genetics, or if you didn't have those exact genetics, aka someone else with worse genetics, therefore is not safe, happy, and healthy, right? Which is not accurate, right? Everybody is safe, happy, and healthy. Um, So I noticed this happening, and so I'm laying on the floor in a lot of pain, and I can't tell which organ it is. Like maybe it's my stomach or my intestines, maybe it's my bladder. Like I was worried maybe it was some sort of an infection, right? All of these thoughts are coming up, like what is going on? Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's gas, maybe my uterus is trying to fight me. Who knows, right? And every single time one of these thoughts came up, I said, "Oh, nope, it's not that." Because that's not, that would be me giving my power away, right? So I'm not trying to change the circumstances that seem to be happening of the pain that I seem to be experiencing, right? But I'm acknowledging and recognizing I'm making it in my mind, right? I'm choosing it. Um, and if I instead of acknowledging my all-powerful creative mind in this scenario, if I deny power of my mind and instead put power into something else, like the food I ate, like this thing, that thing, whatever, um, I'm basically providing fuel for the ego to justify, or the ego is going to say, oh yeah, well, there's proof that you're separate from God. Right? So it perpetuates the illusion as opposed to when I return the power from, oh, maybe it's the food that made you sick, whatever. If I return the power to my mind and say, nope, I'm not vulnerable to food, I'm making this up right now. Um, I'm releasing the effectiveness, like I'm releasing the power of the illusion. I'm taking my power back from the illusion because the illusion only has power that we give to it,
Yeah.
right? The illusion only has power we give to it. So as soon as you recognize, oh, I'm giving power to this aspect of the illusion, and I don't want to do that anymore. Recognize you can choose differently in any moment, right? And the act of choosing differently, the illusion becomes weaker. The illusion has nothing.
Yeah.
The illusion has no power. Um, so I've noticed that this is something that I seem to be better at, recognizing it's a skill to kind of catch these thoughts, to bring them to the truth right away, to have fun with it as much as you can. This is something that we talked about recently where, I had to get my blood drawn recently. And it apparently is something I don't like in this dream. I have a preference for not getting my blood drawn. Um, and it was tough to have fun with it. It was kind of a tough time to have fun with it. I felt like I had to be really brave. I felt uncomfortable. You know, Here they are offering me snacks, and then I have thoughts of like, oh yeah, because once this blood comes out of my body, my blood sugar is gonna drop, and this is gonna happen, and that's gonna happen. So it was kind of tough to like have a good time with it in the moment. And shortly after, I was able to lighten up about it. You know what I mean? And recognizing it doesn't have to be in the same moment of the experience, right? Because when we bring these gentle corrections to our perception, we're doing it in the present moment for the past, right? And therefore helping them not repeat themselves. Does that make sense? So, for example, getting my blood drawn felt really uncomfortable. All of these thoughts came up, and then later in the day, I was still uncomfortable, right? Whatever, some more of these like kind of limiting thoughts came up, and then bringing it to the truth. Oh, I'm not a body. I'm unaffected by this, right? I'm perfectly fine. This does nothing to impact my peace and happiness, right? Um, Something that seems to trip me up nonetheless is I'm working on applying the same new thought pattern when I seem to be experiencing pain, right? So I seem to have an experience of pain in my lower back, right? And I'm like going through some stretches, like going through some stretching moves. And I started implementing this today where anytime I'd come to that threshold, that feeling of like, oh, there it's triggering the pain, right? I started reintroducing these thoughts of I am a perfect son of God. I am as God created me, and God's son cannot be harmed. I am God's son, right? So I started bringing these gentle corrections into into my thought process around pain, right? Because the alternative is like, oh, I'm in pain. And the ego immediately wants to take that and say, oh, look, there's proof that you are a vulnerable body, right? Because you seem to be experiencing this. Here's proof that you can be injured or that you are vulnerable in one way or another. Um, or similar but different, a way that I've been introducing these new thought patterns, right? Which again, um, kind of prevents the ego thoughts from sinking their claws in, right? So like if an ego comes up and you immediately replace it with a thought of love, right? Or a thought of truth, right? Um, the ego's thought has nothing to sink in. It just disappears, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, for example, if I'm experiencing menstrual cramps, right, it seems to come over as a wave. It's intense. It seems to be painful. Um, my practice lately has been relaxing, first of all, instead of clenching and tightening around it, because there is a sense where it's a contraction. The whole body wants to just kind of like clench up and wait for it to be over. And instead, I've been more intentionally trying to open and relax, right? And also introducing some of these corrective thoughts of I am not separate from God. I am not a vulnerable body, right? This seems to be happening. It's not really like it doesn't touch me at all, right? It affects me zero, right? Um, and this is not to deny the experience. It's to deny what the experience is being used for, right? So the experience when I'm in pain or when I'm sick and I use all of these clues, all of the symptoms of this illness of separation from God, really how it's showing up is as sickness or as cramps or whatever, as pain. Um, I'm giving it a new purpose. So the ego would use these things to perpetuate this idea of separation, right? And instead, I'm using the exact same thing to reinforce, to further reinforce the teachings of love and the truth that I am not separate from God, right? And I have noticed that if I seem to be sick, it hardly lasts long at all. And when I'm sick, I actually have I actually have kind of a fun time with it. I'm like kind of delusional and I'm just like the whole time I'm like, great, let's take every symptom, let's take every moment to return power to my mind,
To learn from it.
to learn from it,
Yeah.
to return power from my mind. And it's a fucking great opportunity to see what you don't want, right? Because if you see that if you are making in your dream that the body needs or the body brings you safety, um food and your circumstances and how you take care of yourself make you healthy, make you safe, make you whole, make you happy, do any of these things for you, right? Then you're saying the body can also make you unhappy, can make you unwell. These circumstances, this food, the things that you do, how you take care of yourself, so to speak, can also make you vulnerable and make you really not feel good, right? So if you say, oh, this thing has power over me, even in the positive, right? You're also making it have power over you in its opposite, right? Nothing has power over you, right? You are perfectly healthy and happy. You are perfectly whole. You are invulnerable, completely innocent, guiltless, shameless. You are deathless. You are pastless, right? Pastless.
So,
You have no past. You are perfect presence, right? This idea of having a past. Oh, I can look at your past, right? Is only a tool used by the ego to find guilt, to justify guilt, to justify fear is going to be based on your past, right? But to recognize that you are pastless, to look on your brothers as they are pastless, right? Um, is an opportunity, is a way to, it's a tool you can use to say, I'm going to look on you as you are pastless, right? Is a way to look on them truly, a way to look beyond the story of the body and the story of vulnerability, right? It's a way to look beyond the narrative of the personality and the character that they're imagining playing, that you're imagining they're playing, right? To see them as pastless is to see them as perfectly whole right now, right? To see that they have nothing to be guilty about. They have done nothing, right? Except be here now, right? So, yeah, to use your present experience to perpetuate loving truth as opposed to perpetuating death. It's really that simple,
yeah.
right? So this is something I've been integrating and it's been such a helpful tool. And it's honestly been kind of fun, you know? Because otherwise you're just miserable.
Yeah.
You're miserable. You're like, oh, I'm in hell right now.
It almost, to me, it almost feels like get yourself stuck in a mental loop.
100%.
You're like you're not learning from that, and so it just keeps showing up.
Yeah,
It keeps showing up,
totally.
and you're just in this loop.
And you're just gonna keep making it. And when I tell people I haven't gone to the doctor in 6 years, right? Um, which is accurate, haven't gone to the doctor in 6 years, people are shocked. They're like so surprised. They're like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, nope, haven't gone to the doctor in 6 years. I was talking to someone here in the Northeast, we just are getting through winter. Today was like yesterday and today I think I have a little bit of a sunburn. If the sun can do that. I'm not actually sunburnt. I don't sunburn, but um I was out in the sun all day today. It was like 65 and I was just like soaking it up. Um so we're getting out of winter. Although, later this week, apparently it's going to be 30 degrees again. I was like, what the heck? Um, but I was chatting with some folks and they were talking about how, one of my friends is kind of superstitious. He really um believes or wants to believe that if he carries a certain coin made out of a certain kind of metal in his pocket next to one of his lymph nodes on his thigh, it will prevent him from catching a cold.
Talisman.
Right.
Something.
And it doesn't, I asked him, I was like, oh, does it work? And he was like, no, I've had a cold for weeks. I was like, for weeks? I was like, I caught a cold maybe twice this year, and each time it lasted 3 days. And
Wow.
I was never all the way out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I never kind of had to clock out or anything like that or stay home or cancel anything.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I had fun with it. I mean, that's how I see it. I'm like, great, cool. I brought it to the truth. I stopped giving power to the illusion. Like I stopped giving power to the fantasy, right? Or the lie of separation. Because that's really like when we get to the root, that's really what we're giving power to is that lie. We're giving our belief and our willpower to that lie. And once I stopped doing that, I was like, oh, cool, great. I can drop this whenever I want to,
Yeah.
right? And just to recognize, like, oh, if you're experiencing something, you're like, oh, I want to experience this. And I've recognized this with cramps, with menstrual cramps specifically. There's a part of it, there's a part still where I want the body to give me pleasure, right? Or I have a belief that the body can bring me pleasure somehow, right? Or give me a good feeling, right? And so therefore, I'm also making in the same moment the body can give me a bad feeling. So when I have a bad feeling, I recognize that's also coming from my desire to have a good feeling from the body,
Yeah.
right? And that's something that I'm working on and really recognizing, like in my sexual experiences lately. I almost don't necessarily feel like they're giving me a good feeling. I feel like I'm bringing like my total joy and presence and good feelings to the experience, right? It doesn't feel like that experience needs to happen in order for me to have a good feeling, right? Or that anything needs to happen a certain way in order for me to have a good feeling, right? And it's not that they're not good feelings, right? It's like there are all of these good feelings, but I'm returning the power to my mind. I'm recognizing where they're coming from, right? The body is not capable of producing any good feelings, right? It's a sack of flesh, right? And you might say, "Oh, what about the nerves? What about this? What about that?" It's like, "Oh, and where are those going?" Right? To the brain, another sack of flesh, right? It is your interpretation, which comes from your mind,
Yeah.
right? It is entirely interpretation, right? You could have flames licking up your legs and it would be sensational and your nerves would be like wow sensation and your mind could in some way interpret that as a good feeling or a bad feeling,
Mm.
right? So that's another fun piece is like, oh, if you recognize something as sensation instead of good or bad, right? Um, for me, it comes down to instead of labeling something as bad, I might say it's uncomfortable. Oh, it doesn't feel natural to me. It doesn't feel like my natural state of total ease, total peace, total happiness, total love, right? Oh, it feels kind of uncomfortable. It feels kind of unnatural for me. For example, when I have menstrual cramps and my whole body is clenching, that feels unnatural to me, right? But if I seem to have a sensation and I do what I can to just relax, that feels way more natural to me, right? Um, in the past, I had sexual experiences that felt very like mechanical, kind of robotic, or kind of like I wasn't kind of like I think the closest word you can describe it is like dissociative, right? Where it's almost like I'm not really in my body, but I'm kind of observing what's happening and I'm noticing that my body is participating, right? But I'm not really present. I'm not bringing a good feeling to this, right? And it's not because there wasn't a good feeling to be had, right? But it's because I was expecting the body to give me a good feeling, right? And so we dissolve that illusion,
Instead of you being the good feeling.
right? I am the good feeling. I am the orgasm, right?
Like, that's good.
I am the good feeling. That's it. I was talking to a friend of mine about this yesterday, um, about how, I'm not here to make anyone else happy, right? I'm not here to make anyone else happy. And it was kind of a funny conversation because the way I phrased it initially was like, oh, yes, I'm so selfish, right? Because I come over to your house because I want to, and I want to hang out with you, and I want to eat your food, and I want to sit on your couch. I'm not coming over to your house because it makes you feel happy, right? I don't care how it makes you feel. How you feel doesn't determine what I do, right? Or how you may or may not feel, right? Doesn't determine anything for me, right? I want you to feel good, but I recognize that the good feelings are coming from you. It's your choice to have good feelings. They're available to you in every single moment. Even when all of the ego thoughts are saying that you could be miserable right now, right? And it's funny, phrasing it as selfish is also quite funny. Nothing can actually be selfish. We are one, right? Just to be very clear. But the ego is saying, "Well, I do all of these things to make you happy, and you don't care about making me happy. You don't do these things to make me happy. That's so selfish." Right? That means that I'm putting energy into making you happy, and all you're doing is putting energy into making you happy. So now we're both putting our energy into making you happy, right? And it's like, oh, well, you don't have to do that. It doesn't work. You can't make me happy, no matter what you do, right? You can't make me happy. It's completely impossible, right? If I decide to give you the power to make me happy, right? If I decide to give you the power to make me happy, I am also handing over the power to make me very upset, very unhappy. And you can't make me unhappy. That's a choice. That's a choice that I'm making, right? So again, I have the power within myself to make myself happy or unhappy. If I give one away, I give both of them away, right? Because again, that's my choice. But if I say something outside of me can make me happy or unhappy, right? I'm basically denying that that power is coming from myself, right? And so now I am totally vulnerable to the ups and downs in the world. Totally vulnerable to the ups and downs in the world.
Creating new illusions.
100%. Believing illusions, right? Believing. And this is the same thing, right? It's all coming down to the same thing. If I'm expecting the body to give me a good feeling, the body can also give me a bad feeling, right? Really, the body can't give me any feeling. The body's not going to give me anything.
It's you,
That's not the purpose of the body, right?
us.
It's me, it's us that's making the feeling and pretending it's coming from the body. Cool. That's it. That's all you got to do. Return the power to your mind, right? In returning the power to your mind, great. When you see that you're making it, have a good ass time with whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Go fuck all the people, go do all the drugs, do whatever you want, right? But recognize that it's not the sex, it's not the food, it's not the drugs. None of these things are bringing you that good feeling, right? And recognize that you can have equally as good a feeling when you're not having sex, when you're not eating all that food, when you're not doing all those drugs. That's the truth. That good feeling is available to you all the time. All the time. And you're not vulnerable to the highs and lows. You're not vulnerable to like, oh, I need this thing. And then you know,
It's all within us.
totally all within
All
you.
of it. All the thoughts you could possibly imagine.
Hmm.
It's all inside.
And you can choose between them. You have a choice.
Good stuff. Journey back home.
And it's great. Once you realize that, you're like, nice. Once you see that you're not vulnerable and that any vulnerability you seem to have, you gave to yourself and you can take it back, right? You can return the power to your mind that you gave away to these things outside of yourself. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's a great feeling. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Because now you can create from
Yeah.
truth, from the
Think
love.
of how much think of how much more energy you might seem to have if you aren't worried about being vulnerable to everything all the time. If you're not if you're not worried about your partner making you unhappy, or if you're not worried about your partner not making you happy. Oh, they're not doing enough to make me happy. That just sounds like a waste of fucking time, right? They don't care about making me happy. They just keep doing nice things for me, but they don't care if it makes me happy or not. I'm just kidding. I'm teasing, guys. I'm teasing. It's all for fun. It's all for fun. Recognize what's really happening is that if you're having trouble with this, if you're having trouble with making yourself vulnerable to everything around you, food causes illness, this causes that, that causes when we're confused about cause and effect, right? And we think that something within us is caused by something outside of us is what's really happening, right? It makes it really hard for us to have a good ass time. It makes it really hard for us to have a good time, right? Because we're seeing ourselves as very limited, right? We're seeing ourselves as super limited and super vulnerable. If you have this all-powerful creative mind and you limit it to the vulnerability of the body, Oh my gosh.
You set a limit.
Yeah, you're setting a limit on yourself. And when you set that limit on yourself, you're setting that for all of your brothers. If you see yourself as vulnerable to all of these things, you are seeing everyone as vulnerable to these things, right?
Yeah.
If you see someone else as being vulnerable, right, you're seeing yourself as just the same, right? If you see them as perfectly whole, invulnerable, they are not a body, etc., etc., oh, you're going to see yourself that way.
Mm. Again, you're one.
We are one, totally, completely.
One.
Cannot be separated from each other. Wouldn't want to be.
No.
The ego would try to convince you, like, oh, you want to be separate from those people because they're different, worse, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
They're more vulnerable, they're worse than you are.
But that just cannot happen.
It just doesn't, um, it seems to be possible. It seems to be possible that you can judge others and make them, again, seem separate from yourself. Right.
Yeah.
And as soon as you see that they're not, as soon as you see them truly, um, like that illusion disappears completely, right? The illusion is acting as a layer of veil over your awareness of truth, right? And genuinely, once you start seeing beyond the veil of the illusion, you can't really stop.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't go back.
You can't go back.
Because going
You can
back just
you can pretend, you can try, you know, but once you truly have a glimpse of love, of forgiveness, of guiltlessness, of wholeness, of real safety of these things, um, it makes it real. You just recognize how unsatisfying the world is. You recognize that you don't want to continue seeking love and safety and all of these things from your insubstantial dream, your dream that is lacking substance, right?
yeah.
You have swam in the ocean, and to go back to a bathtub is depressing. And you just don't want to. And some people do. Some people swim in the ocean and then they go back to a bathtub and they say, "Oh, 'cause I deserve it. This is what I deserve." You know, this is my punishment, right?
Sense of guilt. Yeah.
Good girl. Want us to talk about that? I think that should be helpful. Should be helpful. And it gives a piece of practical guidance on understanding how do we, when we are experiencing these uncomfortable things, these things that are unnatural to us.
Yeah.
Why are we experiencing them? Where are they coming from? Right? Right. And then how do we bring them to the truth? Right? We're not worried about changing the circumstances, right? The effects that seem to be happening in our dream or to our body or whatever are effects entirely from our mind. If you try to, we know this from Western medicine, if you try to correct something on the level of symptom, right? So if you're trying to correct or trying to change for example, say I'm sick, say I have a cold and I'm blowing my nose all the time and sneezing and coughing and all of these things, right? If I'm trying to correct on the level of symptom, right? As opposed to the level of cause, right? Maybe a cold isn't the right thing. Uh, cancer. We'll say like another illness, right? We'll say I have a different illness and it's presenting as a cold, but really there's a much deeper issue, right? Which is accurately what's happening. Um, if I'm just trying to like subdue the symptoms of the cold, right? And just trying to like shut down the symptoms of the cold, I'm not actually healing the true illness, right? Um, so it just becomes a distraction, right? So again, I'm not trying to like do some sort of magic trick and heal the cold and make the symptoms stop. I'm noticing what is the actual sickness. The actual sickness is a belief that I'm separate from God, right? So I'm healing things on the level of the actual sickness, not on the level of symptoms. And seems to be really helpful. Seems to be a lot easier to have a good time with everything, right? Even with this seeming pain and seeming illness and, you know, they seem to be very short-lived. They seem to be temporary. I'm not using them as proof of my separation, right? Just bringing them to truth whenever they come up. And recognizing, like, oh, this pain is coming up because I want it, right? This pain is coming up because I want it.
Yeah,
I want pain from the body because, and so I want pleasure from the body,
yeah.
right?
And I have,
I want sickness from the body and I want health from the body.
yeah,
I want longevity. I want safety. I want that security of health. And therefore, I want the opposite.
I've noticed something happening to me is when I get sick, I learn a very important thought or truth
Yeah,
with the sickness or with the help of that. It's interesting. That's something I've noticed.
super fun.
Yeah.
Super fun. And just using it to benefit you. Recognizing the actual act of being sick, what seems to be happening with the body or your symptoms or whatever, very unimportant. Not really happening, right? How you are using it for learning, for again clearing the cobwebs in your mind, far the most impactful, right? The most impactful, the most important, the most happy, right? The most helpful.
That was very good. And then I really,
Oh, hello. Thank you. Bedtime. Good job, sweetie. Do you want to come here?
but yeah, forgot what I was going to
Oh, another thing I want to talk about, and this is kind of the same in the same boat, is run to your triggers. Love your triggers. And I know we've talked about this again, but it keeps coming up. It seems to be helpful to repeat these kinds of things. But you get to a point where we want to see all of the things that are triggering us, right? All of the things that are telling us that we are or are not equal to everyone else, right? Um, for example, you're way worse than that guy, or well, at least you're better than her. These are all triggers. They're triggering ego thoughts and seem to be triggering our belief in them, right? Or trying to think of other ones. Um, Thoughts that are making us guilty and have a bad feeling, right? Um, Someone pisses us off. Someone seems to piss us off. Someone else seems to give us a bad feeling, right? Perfect trigger. run at it, right? Dive right in, right? Explore it, bring it to the truth. It's harmless. Exploring your triggers is nothing but helpful. Nothing but helpful. Seek them out, right? Say, oh, I'm willing to be triggered so that I can see through them. And you see through them, they might keep coming up, but if you're not willing to actually see them, they're going to come up and you're not going to really realize that they're coming up. You're not really going to notice them. Does that make sense? Like these things have probably been coming up for a while in a lot of different ways, and you just weren't fully aware. You weren't willing to actually see them for what they are. So they're coming up in your rear view, and you're just focused straight ahead. You're not paying attention to them,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Where
but
we should just stop and pay attention
right.
and ask, like, why are you coming up?
Why are you
Or
coming up?
how?
Sure. Um, it's not, we're not so worried as to why. Why can be helpful sometimes. It can also be a distraction, right? So why can be helpful. Really, we're just focused on bringing things to the truth, right? So a lot of times why can be helpful. Why is it great? Why is kind of the psychology answer, right? Why is this coming up? You know, but what that can do for a lot of people is just justify further belief in it. It can justify further belief in the story or the narrative. If you're looking at why is this coming up, you're specifically asking for past,
To relive, yeah.
which is the ego. The past doesn't exist, right? We are all pastless. There is no why, except that's what you're choosing in the moment of believing that thought now, right? That's the only why. Why is this coming up? I'm choosing it right now. That's it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's,
Why is because it's there for us to learn, to remember the truth that we are all one, we are love. So just bring it to the truth, back
yeah,
to the love.
totally. That's the purpose of everything, right? Hello, Bara.
Speak to it. Say we are all one. We are all
We're
love.
not separate from God.
Separate.
I'm willing to see clearly. Yeah.
It's good.
Because why a lot of times can justify fear.
It just continues the
Right.
story.
It's going to continue the story, continue this idea of lack of love. Sometimes why can be helpful, but recognize that why is this coming up is always if you're not getting all the way back down to a belief I'm separate from God,
Yeah.
you're not going deep enough.
Okay.
For example, this kind of came up. I was having this is like, I could keep going on this for a long time, but I was having a feeling or an idea, a thought that I was having a thought that something wasn't perfect in my life, which guaranteed ego thought. That's all it could possibly be, right? But I had this thought, thank you, thank you, come here, good girl, thank you. I had this thought that something wasn't perfect in my life. I seemed to believe it, seemed to have an uncomfortable feeling. Again, the uncomfortable feeling came from my thought, came from the thought that things weren't perfect, right? But it seemed to be the opposite, right? I seemed to have the uncomfortable feeling first, and then my mind made up, what's the reason for this uncomfortable feeling? You know? Nope, other way around, right? This I had a belief that something wasn't perfect in my life or that things weren't perfect, and then the uncomfortable feeling arose, right? And in bringing this to the truth, it was helpful to say why, right? It was helpful to say why because I was able to say why am I looking at it like this? Oh, because I am expecting there's somewhere that I learned that peace is not consistent, right? Or that unconditional love is not like I learned from my experiences in this lifetime, again, the ego, right? I learned that love is conditional. I learned that peace is conditional, right? Peace, these things, love and peace, are not things you can really rely on, trust in wholeheartedly, right? They're temporary, they're going to change depending on how someone else is feeling, depending on any of these things, right? So, and then I brought it further to the why. And I said, "Oh, that's so interesting. I like the only reason I would believe love is conditional and peace is conditional is if I believe I'm separate from God."
Yeah,
So in this way, diving into the why was really helpful
because it brought another illusion.
because it brought another illusion of the ego to the truth. But again, it's
Yeah.
because we brought the why all the way down. If I just brought the why to like, oh, um, I'm feeling that something's not perfect in my life, or another way that this was showing up was like, oh, things are going so well, I'm expecting something to go wrong soon, right? Um, oh, why am I expecting that? Because my father was angry and things would go well and then blow up, right? Things would go well for a little while and then totally blow up, right? If I left it at that, now I'm saying, oh, now I can blame my father for my current unhappiness, right? Now my father is guilty for the fact that I'm expecting things to go bad now. It doesn't actually free me, right? It just it defends and almost adds a layer of proof or of evidence to the story, to the justification of fear. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To clarify anything, trying to convince you that peace is not your natural state is a lie.
Yeah.
That was this other idea. You get down to the root. Oh, here's this belief that I'm separate from God. And then what's the next layer? Love is conditional, peace is conditional. The ego is going to tell you peace is unnatural.
Yeah.
You should expect chaos. Peace is unnatural, right? This is a lie.
Yeah.
That's not accurate. Peace is the most natural thing, right? And I've even recognized this where it's like, oh, interesting. I seem to have been believing these ego thoughts that would tell me that peace is unnatural for long enough that now I have a sense of, huh, everything's peaceful, something's wrong, which is so funny. And it's just a matter of bringing it back to the truth and reteaching yourself, oh no, you can expect this. This should be expected. This is what's real, right? It's just a matter of reteaching yourself, right? Bringing it back to the truth and reteaching yourselves again on the core level, right? If I'm looking at the shallow level and asking why and then stopping at the shallow level of like why am I expecting everything to blow, things go well and then I'm expecting them to blow up. Why is that happening? Oh, because of my father.
Yeah.
That's why I'm expecting it. If I leave it on that level, I'm saying, "Oh, that's the cause of my current suffering." And so now my happiness is vulnerable to any other cause from my past, my future, my present,
Yeah.
right? Anything else can affect my happiness and my suffering, right? Happy times, bad times, whatever. But if I go all the way back and I say, oh, I'm believing that love is conditional and peace is conditional, and because I was believing love and peace are conditional, that's what was showing up. That's what was showing up in my life because that's what I was believing. So if I take that all the way back and I say, oh, actually, I'm not separate from God. Love is unconditional. Peace is unconditional. Peace is my natural state. Oh, now that's what I'm creating. Now that's what I'm seeing. And it's true. That's what I'm seeing now, you know?
And I also feel like getting just deciding to stay stuck on that why through the perspective of the ego can also create other ego thoughts like, oh,
It's all the same. All ego thoughts are the same, right? But I understand what you're saying.
it seems
It's
to like grow other branches of,
it seems to they lack substance entirely. So you're not actually making anything, right? Just to be clear, right? It's really just you're wasting time, right? You can't make more of nothing.
everything has already been made.
No, the ego doesn't exist. You can't make more of something that doesn't exist. You can seem to. It can seem to make these other branches. Really, it's just the same thing, right? Every ego thought is the same. Every ego thought comes back to I'm separate from God, right? I'm not safe. I'm guilty. They're guilty. I'm separate from other people or my brothers or however you want to say it, you know? Um, but they're all really saying the same thing. Fear is justified, is what they're saying, right? Lack of love is real and deserves punishment, you know? But I see what you're saying. So I think what you're trying to say is that when we get stuck on the why, when we get stuck on the kind of surface level of getting into our triggers or getting into our problems, when we say, why is this ego thought coming up?
Yeah, and you don't bring it to the
And
truth.
you don't bring it all the way to the truth. You just bring it to the surface level and say, oh, well, this is why my attack thoughts or my defensive thoughts are justified, right? Yeah, you're further perpetuating the ego, right? You're further giving power away. You're giving power outside of yourself, saying someone else, you're vulnerable to someone else. You're making yourself vulnerable with those thoughts, right? If you hold on to any thoughts of making yourself or someone else guilty, making someone attacking you, and therefore you have to be defensive, or vice versa, right? Someone has to defend themselves against you. Same thing, right? This is what I mean by you're not really making anything, you're just wasting time, right? Because the purpose of time is for learning the truth, right? And if you spend time, right? If you spend time just perpetuating these lies, you're not getting anywhere. You're on a hamster wheel,
Yeah.
right? You're like, you're gonna keep going forever. And then at any point, you can decide to get off. That's the important part, right? You can decide to get off.
If you don't know to, just ask for
Just
direction.
ask, hello, how do I get off? Ah, I am in hell that I created, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Have you ever heard that expression, like you are your own worst enemy? You ever heard that expression?
I would say that you make your own worst enemy.
Oh, I like that.
You are not your own worst enemy. Your worst enemy, aka the ego, this idea that you are your own worst enemy is coming from an identification with a false, a completely not real version of yourself that you are trying to make yourself to be,
Yeah.
right? This idea of the ego is an idea that you would identify yourself as something that you cannot be, right? But you would try and make yourself that. You would believe that you are this thing that you can never be, right? You would believe that you are this evil, vulnerable, guilty, disgusting, vengeful, uh, weak, defensive, murderer, right? Um, and you cannot be. You cannot be. But this is what the ego would try and convince you. So in this, you are your own worst enemy, right? Recognizing that that's the choice. You have the choice to make hell or to live in heaven, right? So you could be your own worst enemy, so to speak, if you choose hell. You make yourself into your own worst enemy. And you also, and by doing that, you are making everyone else around you your worst enemy. And that's what you're going to continue to see. Attack is justified, you are vulnerable, right? All of these things. Choose heaven, see yourself clearly, see others clearly, right? You are in perfect harmony and perfect union. You have no enemies, especially not yourself.
Okay.
One family, one. Yeah. You have no enemies. The only enemies that exist are created in your mind. They are created by you within you, right?
That was deep.
That's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. We're here at Undefined Wellness, below the Main Street Museum in White River Junction, Vermont. Join us next Tuesday, 6 p.m., for another episode of Spirit Speaks with me, Aria. Ding. Bye.
Bye bye.